So if you look out there, there are 1,000 or so reviews talking how much Frieren is good and singing the praises of its writing and presentation. Well, this is review 1001 because as far as I can tell, this anime is really, really awesome. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb Initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, to start the new year, I want to basically erase all my backlog. And the first one that came to mind, the first thing that was on top of my list to things that I actually need to watch to actually see if they're good, was Sousou no Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And so here we are. First off, and before I even start with anything, spoiler alert, I'll be talking about most of the things that, let's say, need context so that I can talk about how much I think that this is a generational flashpoint, let's say. This anime is so great on so many axes that I can't really keep much of a secret about what happens, and for the most part I don't think that it is consequential to whether or not you like the show itself, whether or not you choose to listen to this podcast before you actually start, because I think the context is important to actually show how much I like and how much this has some really brilliant parts. But at the same time, I think that watching it is much more than just knowing the story, because this is, let's say, the best model of the phrase. It's not about the objective, but it's about the journey itself. And for the most part, that is the main focus of this anime and manga respectively, but I'll get to that when I get there. So first off, for the stats, Sousou no Frieren or Frieren Beyond Journey's End, or the whole thing Sousou no Frieren Beyond Journey's End, is originally a manga written by Kanehito Yamada and Tsukasa Abe. It was originally published in Shogakukan, part of the Shonen Weekly magazine. It started on April 2020 and is still going with 13 volumes. And then the anime was adapted and started on September 2023 to March 2024. It has, weirdly, 28 episodes, and from what I can gather, it is a 2-course anime, so there is still expected to be at the very least a second season, let's say, with another 28 episodes. It is so refreshing that way to actually see something have so much investment behind it, because 25 episodes is so much like not usual nowadays. And even more than that, we actually have, let's say, a kind of a promise of having another 28 episodes, 25 normal, but 28 in this case. And so it comes with that expectation of actually having even more than that, though I do not know, and this is kind of a disclaimer that I didn't put much in the beginning, but I did not read the manga for Frieren, and so I don't actually know how much material they still have to adapt. I don't know if they are stalling for time because they don't actually have the material. The story hasn't really advanced since the release of the anime, and how much they actually can produce into an anime, but that's still to be seen. Fact of the matter is, this anime is so adorable, so wholesome, and at the same time so heavy with its themes. And not only heavy in the way that it is violent and really questions humanity itself, it is that on some cases, and some of the points that we encounter actual villains, it becomes kind of like that, but at the same time it carries so much more with it. And to get into explaining that, let's get to the story. So Frieren starts really simple, and it comes up with a simple premise. A really simple premise. Frieren is an elf in a world of fantasy, so you can expect the monsters, the magics, the whole thing. And she was part of the party of heroes that defeated the Demon King. The story starts right after they defeated the Demon King and go back to the main capital to actually celebrate the defeat of the Demon King and the prosperity of humanity. Not only humanity in this case, but we later on discover/learn that all the humanoids kind of fall into this big umbrella of humanity. And not only that, but given everything, most of the races are not as common as the humans, so the humans are the most prosperous races in the whole continent that they live in. And from this point on, when we see them, they coming back, we have, I think, one long scene, half of the episode, of the first episode, actually talking about the 4 members of the party. So Frieren herself, Heiter the priest, Eisen the warrior, and Himmel the hero. And from then on, we get a quick flash forward to then see that actually Frieren doesn't actually age. And that comes into the point that at this point that we are seeing after the flash forward, it's been, I think, 50 years after the defeat of the Demon King. And so Frieren is still herself with her normal appearance and the recollection of everything that happened, but the other people in the party, Eisen, Heiter, and Himmel, they are way older. And this is the first instance and the first thing that kicks off really the idea for the series, the first idea, I think, the first level, that is the matter of perspective in time. So the one thing that happens is that they go on a trip to actually watch the starfall. And after that, we have the scene where Himmel actually passes away and the funeral and so on and so forth, which then prompts the rest of the series to actually go on. So in actually seeing Himmel passing away, Frieren has this realization after a long time, and this is a thing that we learn more and more as we go on, that she didn't have actually the best connection with her companions. And in seeing that her time is infinite and everyone else that she knows is not, she feels this kind of loneliness in this existence that she carries, because she is way older than anyone in this series. And even more, this grows to a bigger scale as we meet more people. But then she starts to feel lonely, because at that point in time when Himmel passes away, she actually realized that she doesn't actually have many friends, many acquaintances even, and in that she doesn't actually have any relations. And so the loneliness kind of settles in, and in a kind of a way to repent for her not involving herself too much with people. And this is a thing that we actually get to see a lot, is that Frieren is extremely cold and extremely pragmatic at the start of the series. She's really down by the letter, like really objective focused, and in a way she doesn't actually see the world as we see it. So it is really weird in that way that she now has this change of perspective. And throughout the series we get to learn more of why she has this kind of change of heart from nowhere. In a way, it is the main focus of this whole series, but we'll get there. And from then on, we see that she goes through a whole lot of adventures, because at this point she's traveling alone, because at this point Heiter and Eisen have retired, and they are both really old at this point for humans. I think especially Eisen is a dwarf, so he isn't really that old, but that's not the point. Then we get to see that she goes to Heiter. Actually, she finds Heiter retired in a cottage out in the woods. He is taking care of a young girl named Fern, and then from then on, the whole thing kind of opens up, and then we get to actually this first arc really settles down and sets in really how things will work. And the first thing is this perspective of time that we go through, because I think that from the time that she finds Heiter to the point that Heiter eventually passes away and she takes Fern under her wing, I think Frieren may have taken like 3 years, maybe some unannounced amount of years, and to her it doesn't really seem like that, and the anime actually shows that in a way through a montage, and you see the passage of time not only through Heiter or Fern, because Fern actually grows bigger because she's a child at this point, but actually because of the passage of time, the passage of seasons, and so on and so forth. And the whole thing kind of settles into us audience that Frieren doesn't actually have the notion of time that we have. So when we think about a year, 365 days, and when she sees it, 1 year is just an instant, because, and this is a thing that scales more as we get to learn more about elves and demons. Elves go through centuries without actually doing anything, and they don't feel like any time has passed, which then triggers the question of how old is Frieren. It is not defined, but then later on we get to know who in human history at the very least she met and actually lived with, and that gives us as humans that see this perspective a notion of how old she is. And this is not really a good notion either, because we don't actually see much more back than there, much more, let's say, before than that. And the whole thing is, this whole first part is, the first level that Frieren works on is perspective of time, because from then on, when Frieren gets Fern under her wing, Fern is the first person to actually give Frieren in a whole lot of time, like since she was with Himmel in an adventure. Fern is the first person to actually give Frieren the notion of a human timeline, because at one point when they go through kind of a side quest, let's say, Frieren just nonchalantly says that they will like take 3 years to do it, and Fern just stands up and says no, 3 weeks. And that is the first, like, let's say, that's the point where it is set up that Fern is a point of contact for Frieren to the human world. Before I continue, I just want to actually say, I don't know if this review will come out really well, because this anime has so much stuff to actually talk about. It is so difficult to actually dissect something that is so great and actually talk about it in details and not make it boring. But the one thing that I want to say before I reach the 20-minute mark, please go watch it. It is good. It is on the top of my anime list for a reason and has not been debunked since it came out for a reason. This anime is fucking great. So then, I will not talk much about Frieren for now. Let's go through the next character, that is Fern. Fern is a human at the point that she's introduced. She's a child, but she grows up and becomes the apprentice of Frieren because Heiter, in his deathbed, basically asked her to. And Fern is an orphan due to war, and is an apprentice magician, much as Frieren. Frieren is a magician, Fern is her apprentice and is learning magic from her. And for the most part, they keep this apprentice-master relationship, but also it becomes much more, and I think that it is so, the second part, I think it is so much more humanizing, the way that the anime presents everything, because Fern is part apprentice, so she is there to learn and not, you would expect not to question her master. But as we learn, then Frieren actually has a lot of, let's say, little I would say human quirks that we see as failures, more or less. So she oversleeps all the time. She doesn't actually keep her clothes or even anything, not really hygiene, but presentation and how well you go out in a day very well. So she needs help dressing up, even though it's not really, her attire is not really that complex. And she has a hard time keeping up with not only the things that she needs to do, but responsibility. And in the case specifically of Fern, that it is the first point of contact really to Frieren, to us audience, is time. Because Fern, and this is a thing, right? So right after Frieren takes Fern under her wing after Heiter dies, they find a hidden, let's say, a hidden cottage of some kind, hidden hideout, goddamn it. But they find lost grimoire from the legendary Flame, the first magician, the first human magician, and she's deemed as the first human to actually introduce magic to the world, actually have apprentices, and actually push humanity to learn, study, and implement magic in everyday life and military. The military part I will go there at some point, but the important part is Flame is the legendary magician. And at this first point, they find one of her lost grimoires, and in that there is a message specifically to Frieren to actually seek out a region in the north end of the continent that is called, I don't actually remember how, I think it's Ende, the name of the region. It is basically paradise and where the souls go to rest. So it is touted as this place where you can actually go, see, and talk to the dead. And that sets up the main quest of the whole anime, because, and this is not really a tangent, but something important to mention here. When we look at Frieren at the very start, Frieren doesn't actually have, Frieren as a person, I mean, she doesn't actually have really an objective. The only thing that she does after years and years of traveling alone after defeating the Demon King is go around and find diverse spells, and this is really niche, really just no a single use, things that really don't see everyday use, don't actually seem useful to anyone but her, because she likes magic and the arcane that much. She wants to learn, and not only learn really, but seek out different spells from different people. So much so that one of her main hobbies is going through dungeons to actually find lost grimoires, lost books, where she can learn weird spells. So much so that they do this real nice quirk that at the very beginning, at the very least, they throw out some really weird spells for no reason. So a spell that only grows a field of flowers that is objectively useless, but it is something. A spell to see through people's clothes, a spell to remove only, I think was only rust from metal, and so on and so forth. This whole thing goes through a whole process to actually show us what she does. And for the most part, when Frieren gets Fern, she doesn't actually have an objective. It's just when they actually find this grimoire that she goes and thinks, oh, I have this kind of atonement, kind of something that I want to talk about with Himmel specifically, because of a whole lot of things that happened in the past that she couldn't do during his life. And now that she sees at the very least a clue, a lead to a second chance to actually talk to him, she wants to actually go there. And this goes to the fact that they set out into this journey to go to End, to go to the northern part of the continent, and Frieren has already gone there once when they defeated the Demon Lord, and so it will take 10 years and so on and so forth. And this is a whole thing where they set out to do this, and from then on the story opens up a bit more. The thing with Frieren is that, and I need to actually, before I talk about Frieren, I need to talk about our third main character, that is Stark. Stark is rebellious. He's a warrior. They call it a warrior. He is what they call also a frontliner. So he basically is not really a tank, but he's the one that takes the aggro out of the enemy so that Frieren and Frieren can cast spells and actually finish the foe. He is he was the apprentice of Aizen for some time, but then he ran away because of disagreements with him. And for the most part, his whole thing is that he's a coward. But when it comes to actually, when push comes to shove, he shows up and actually does whatever it's needed. This is really well presented when he's first introduced, because of a fight that he has with a dragon, because he doesn't actually know how strong he is, because he lacks experience, but he is strong, but also he is a coward, so he is afraid of all the enemies, but because he doesn't actually know how powerful he really is. And this actually comes to the building of his own character and the development of his arc, let's say. Stark doesn't actually show that much development, all things considered, in this first season. He is, for the most part, the comedic relief, but also there are some specific episodes where he shines a lot and actually shows a really nice side, and kind of reminds me a bit of Shimon from Gurren Lagann at some point. It is really interesting because it feels close to home, you know, it feels really close to home. But now that I talk about Stark, and I don't actually have that much stuff to talk about Stark, for fuck's sakes, the last like 11 episodes of the whole series are only about Frieren and Frieren, but we don't get there. So talking about specifically Frieren is, I think, my favorite character of the whole series. And that is not to say that Frieren is not my favorite. Frieren, she sits in my heart like a character that I have a really hard time not liking. I like her a lot, I like her style a lot, but at the same time she kind of annoys me at for some stuff, because I see myself in her, and not in a good way. Let's say she's really apathetic at the start and really down to earth on pragmatism, which it gets better as the series goes on. And in some instances, some of her questions, some of the things that she does reminds me a lot of myself, so kind of annoys me. But the one character that I want to focus on, and the one character that really I think pushes how much Sousou no Frieren is well written as a whole and well presented. And now that I mentioned, I didn't actually say the studio who made this, Madhouse, same guys who did my beloved High School of the Dead, Hunter x Hunter from 2011, No Game No Life, Death Parade, Parasite, One Punch Man, Overlord, and so many more. Thing is, right, so they had the masterful interpretation. And again, I didn't read the manga, I don't know how the manga presents it, but what I can say is that the anime does a really great job at doing this. Is that Frieren is at the same time the one that shows the least emotions in terms of facial expressions, and at the same time, whenever she does it, it is so much more intense. So whenever she's mad at Stark or Frieren, it is really intense in the way. And again, at the start, it is more like, oh, she's really pissed off. But as time goes on and you get accustomed to it, her pouting, for me at the release, it is really cute and really nice. I just think it's cute. It is funny. And not only that, but she is, for the most part, is still kind of a child. She gets mad for things that we wouldn't like get too mad about after some time. It is something that goes on and it's part of her personality. She is so intense in that aspect that she has this really minute demeanor. She is really quiet to herself, and this reflects on the way that she does magic. She keeps to simple spells for most of the time. She is, as Frieren touches on, she is really well versed in suppressing her mana, even more than Frieren at some points, and this goes on and on to great degree. I think Fern is the best of the characters that we have, the main characters of the release, because she brings so much to the table at the same time that she's not really, let's say, self-assuming. She is really well done in that way. I think that they really did a really good job, because here's the thing, right? She never smiles, never does anything. Whenever she actually does smile, it is so sweet. It feels so cathartic at some points, and it is that kind of magic that they weave that really brings out the character of her, which does not really fall into Frieren and Stark. Stark, for the most part, is the most normal person in the party, and on the other hand, Frieren doesn't actually know how to read a room. So the interactions for the most part feel really comical most of the time, and that's kind of the build of our main party for the first season. I don't know if they will get another member at the second season, but for the first season, basically we live with these three people, and their different quirks and stuff they have to live with, and not only their intentions but also their stories. And for one, and this is the part where I will say that I finished explaining the story, and now I have, let's say, 30 minutes to actually gush about the rest of it. So the first level that I think that Frieren works on is the perspective of time, kind of watching how different people in different scales of time work on. So basically to see the contrast of how Frieren sees 100 years and how the humans see 100 years. And this is a point that is brought up more and more when they fight, actually, because one of the main first fights that they have is Frieren against one of the old generals of the Demon King that she didn't actually finish off. She just sealed him because she didn't actually have the spells to actually do it, because he was so powerful and so on and so forth. And that was the moment that I was grabbed by the balls by this anime, because the way that they present it, and I can't really do a great job in here in this medium, or even if I did a video, I can't really explain how how interesting it feels, how they did such a good job to present this point. But the moment that she unfreezes the guy and tells this whole story about how his spell was so powerful that humanity went through centuries to study it and adapt to it, and then bring it up to the point of being normal and now being the basic, it is such a great feeling. Like, it feels like a tale of evolution of how we develop things, how things go forward, and humanity, when it gets together, it just develops and goes wild. It really felt in that moment the same feeling that, and again with this comparison, it really felt like I was watching Gurren Lagann again. That hype moment when you see everybody coming together to actually deliver the final blow, and that actually, like, everybody together believe in each other. And it is really nice in that way. It's really cathartic, and at the same time the scene is masterfully animated. And this is a thing, okay? And this is a thing about the whole anime. I can't stress this enough. Animation is top notch. The animation for the fighting scenes is really, really, really well done. the choreography especially. I will not say that the animation itself is 100% perfect, but the choreography for the fights, perfect. That is the 10 out of 10, because they did everything right. They actually got everything right with the fights, from this one that is the first one to the next big fight that is against the first actual demons that we find in this era of Frieren and Stark. And it is such a great thing, and I'll talk more about a few more battles later, but just to say that the second point, and this is a thing that goes through a whole lot of other themes, some of which I don't actually want to touch much on, because I have seen some people enter some weird discussions, and I think that the point of the episode is precisely the thing of people trying to explain why that is right or wrong, and I don't want to actually cross that line, because, you know, way too weird. Just keep it simple. So the thing is, the second level that Frieren works on is actually humanizing my pronunciation is terrible, sorry. Humanizing every one of the characters that we meet. Not only our main characters, but also every one of the fellow travelers, people in towns, even the NPCs. They all try to actually show a bit of personality, show a bit of their own selves. And in that way, it is really nice to actually see, because for the most part, and this is a thing, right? Frieren, in a way, is a story that humanizes everyone, because it shows that everyone has a path, everyone has a desire, and conflict is not always due to being an enemy outright. It is just a conflict of interests, and not in the way that it becomes violent for the most part. Sometimes, and I would say most of it, it comes down to actually what one person wants to, what someone expects them to do. And not only that, but also circumstances and stuff that happens in life. It is, and I can't really bring one single example for this, but there is one, and I think that is the shining part of like the arc of Stark. That is one episode when he is basically contracted to be, let's say, the deep fake of a noble's son, because the son died in battle against a demon, and the people of the city can't really know as of yet that the son has died, because he was a symbol of a growing soldier, a symbol of hope, and so on and so forth, the next generation, so on and so forth. And in that episode, it shows so much of everyone around, not only Stark, because at this point Stark has not yet been well developed, but it shows not only Stark, but shows a bit of Frieren, and it shows even the guys who give out the quest that is just one quest of one episode that don't actually will not actually impact the end of the journey. They actually take the time to actually show the people, actually show the ideals of each one, to actually show how Stark sees himself in the second son of the noble, and how they relate in that way. It is so humanizing that way. It shows that the world is made of people, and it is much like we say in video games, when the environment we play is lively or lifeless. We actually see that there are people doing their own stuff with their own ideals and own desires. It is so nice in that way, because, and here's the thing about Frieren as a whole, the structure of episodes is really, really episodic in a way that, as I said at the beginning, it's not about the objective, is about the journey. And in doing that, they presented each episode with a simple premise. So they are on a journey, but the time landmark is Himmel's death, because it is the, let's say, the point of when Frieren actually set out to try to atone by not knowing the people that she wanted to know. And actually, she resents herself for doing it, and so the main point of reference in time is when Himmel dies and when she lost the chance and so on and so forth. And that's the first thing. The second thing is the episodic nature of each of the encounters. As the quest is really not that it is undefined, but the timeline is undefined. They don't actually have time limit to doing it. They actually go through a whole lot of encounters with a whole lot of people because of many things, being lost in the snow, reaching a new city, meeting someone that actually wants to be an adventurer but can't, or don't want to become an adventurer even though they want to, because they want to help and feel useful, or search for someone. And oh my god, there's so many different things that happen in Frieren that I can't really stop here to do it, because it is not really this, but for the most part it is 28 episodes of different adventures that they have for different reasons, and each of them have a significance, kind of a message, a kind of presentation, and a kind of idea, a quirk, and its own different, let's say, flavor of what part of the world of Frieren we are learning about. And this is a thing that really is beautiful about Frieren, is that I don't know any of the world, I don't know any maps, I don't know where they are in a given episode, but in all of their encounters, if I sum it up everything, I can actually build a kind of a lore of the world. I can know some religions, some of the old heroes, some of the older heroes than Frieren even, and some of the wars, some of the other stuff. And this is what I find so beautiful about this. Every single episode is separated for the most part, and although the weight of each happening carries over, the episodes, each of them have this really well done beginning to middle to end, and for the most part it ends on a cathartic and most times cute or comedic kind of ending, which is really nice. And the quality of every episode is really well preserved. I can't really point out a single episode that was really bad, because for the most part I think that there wasn't any bad episodes. I think that there are some really small nitpicks that I could point out if I watched it again, but even then the nitpicks are really small. The one thing that I really like is that it is, and this is the third part in where I need to talk about the enemies of the antagonists, let's say. Frieren, I think it keeps up and is maintained by the notion and the concept of being really simple, because it's not so much that you take someone at face value and what they say at face value, is more of there are no real like hidden messages, hidden intentions in any of the characters. For the most part, Frieren just wants to reach Ende to see Himmel. Fern is her apprentice and wants to reach Ende to actually talk to Heiter again, because he was the one that basically raised her for the most part. And Stark, although I didn't talk much about him before, just wants to adventure for the sake of it, because he wants to at some point go back to Eisen and actually talk about all his adventures. And in that way, Frieren is so simple in that the characters are so simple. In each of the different episodes, it keeps that simplicity with everyone. They have clear intentions, clear methods, and the conflict is generally clear. At the very least, the nature of the conflict, whether it is resolved in a simple way or convoluted way, comes down to each of them. Specifically, the last, I think, 3-4 episodes, which is the first class magician test. The first test was really weird. The second test was, let's say, was just to hammer home the idea that this was well animated. And the third one was, I would say, inconclusive. It feels inconclusive, and that's one of the nitpicks. I think that the third test is objectively not really a test, but I don't want to really get into that because at some point it's simple. I shouldn't really dive too deep into it because it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day they got what they wanted, so whatever. But it is simple in that way. The characters that we meet are simple. The characters that we follow are simple. Every one of the people that we interact with are simple. And then we talk about the antagonists. And this goes again, and the antagonists go against everything that I've talked so far. They are self-centered, and when I talk about the antagonists, I'm talking outright about the demons, because the demons are presented as this overwhelming force against the humanoids, and basically Frieren has a blood feud with them. Not really a blood feud. The way that it is shown, it is pretty simple as anything in this anime really is, because her village was attacked by demons and she is the only survivor, and thanks to Flame, her teacher, she was saved and actually could learn magic from Flame and so on and so forth. But her whole family, lot of acquaintances, everyone was killed by a demon. And so the explanation is really simple and they don't dive too much into it. I think that they want to do it at a later point, I don't know. But easy to say that demons are the main antagonist, main enemy of this whole thing. And for the most part, they are not only simple bad guys because they're bad guys, but also they have a whole episode to actually show off and explain why demons are bad. Because demons, and this is the thing, right? Demons are not people, they are animals that know how to talk. They don't know the concept of words, but they can actually learn simple reasoning and how to deceive someone. And this is the whole point of the episode when it comes up. They don't know the notion of family. They don't have the notion of parents, of sisters, babies. The notion, and this is the thing, right? Whenever you think about your family and the whole thing, it is something that it is simple when you think about it, but also it comes with a whole lot of concepts that we don't actually talk much about. But in the episode specifically, it comes up that one demon that was trying to destroy a village, every time that he was threatened, he would call, and the demon seemed like a child, a human child at the very least. He called for his mom, like mommy, and everyone would hesitate at that point. But when eventually they kill it and it kind of speaks for it, it doesn't actually know what mommy means. It just knows that it's a word that makes human hesitate, and that is the whole concept of them. They do not have the same concepts that we have, so much so that the main thing that on that episode is about how the demons deceive a human settlement to lower their barrier so that the demons can attack and eat the humans. But then Frieren, Stark, and Fern kind of go against it, and they kind of get their things together, and the whole thing kind of goes through there. And here's the thing, right? So demons go against every single one of the concepts because they are self-centered. They have no perspective outside of themselves. They also, if I'm being honest, they don't interact with anyone, if only just to kill, maim, eat, or something like that. They don't have the human traits of actually knowing what they are talking, and this goes back to the point that they know how to deceive someone, but they don't actually have the concept of whatever they are talking about. And the other thing is that although they are simple, they try not to be. They are the only characters in the anime that actually try to have second intentions and try to actually show off through actions the prestige that they have. And in being self-centered like that, it comes up as a bad characteristic, and it is such that they are, because of their self-centeredness and their hubris. Most of the demons that they fight, they come down because of their hubris. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore, but that's basically it. Demons' hubris. That's the main thing. And I think that explains Frieren pretty well for the most part. And I hope that someone actually gets to actually watch, because I'm talking about this. The thing that I want to talk about is that Frieren is really is at the same time is really simple. It's really complex because it goes through a lot of difficult themes that we don't actually talk about much. But it does in such a great way. It feels comfy, you know. It talks about so many strong themes, but it feels so comfy for the most part. Whenever there's no actually fighting, the way that they approach subjects, it's so nice, so cute, so wholesome, so family. I don't know how I would describe it. It is really, it feels like home. That's the thing. Now I wanted just to touch on some of the highlights that I want to talk about, because outside from the way that they present it, how the story is made, how the characters are presented, I want to talk about some random stuff. So I am assuming that at the very least, if you are listening to this, you have seen at the very least one is familiar with one or more memes of the series by proxy or not. So whether it would be the mimic gag that Frieren, in her relentless hobby of finding grimoires, she always falls for mimics, even though she's all powerful and really old. She always falls for them. How much Frieren and Stark are a ship and is really, really cute. How much the later introduction of the second ship, Lando and Ubel, they are kind of weird because Lando is basically a NEET that can't really face people, and Ubel is crazy girl, I can fix her for real this time. It is so interesting that at the very end, even though Ubel is a death threat, Gasai Yuno remade again, she is still humanized somewhat. And really, it's so interesting the way they do it. Even when someone seems to be evil and antagonistic to our protagonists, they still humanize them. Outside of demons, demons are not human, and this is a thing. Demons are not humans. Next thing I want to highlight, again, as I said before, all the fights in this series are really, really, really well choreographed, though there are some special ones that are way more than others. So the first one is against the big bad general that Frieren and Frieren go against. Really nice. Second one that I want to talk about is when they meet Stark and he fights the dragon. Really nice. Then there is, I think and again, the moment that I had lost was on the first fight, but this next one is, oh my god, I was lost after that one. I was like, oh my god, I get it now. It was my I get it now moment. When Frieren and Stark go against the two demons inside the city. Oh my god, that fight is amazing. That fight's amazing. And then after that, and this is a thing about chronological order, the one fight that it's sealed. It was sealed. From that point on, I just told myself, I love this thing. And it mixes the way that this anime is really wholesome in the way that it delivers. But when it needs to go hard, you better strap on your best belt, because boy, oh boy, it goes hard. And I'm talking about the fight of Frieren against Aura, because that ending is so much rock and roll, and I can't really express how, like, this is a thing, right? It's not that it is so revolutionary or so different, but the way that they frame it, the way that it is presented, the whole build up to the moment that it happens, the whole thing, bro, that was the best scene I've seen in years. And again, it was the I get it now moment, because that shit goes hard, and I can't really express any other way because oh my god, who wrote that? It is amazing, and the presentation that they do in the anime. Oh my, who the fuck wrote that? That's amazing. That was the point. It was sealed. I just thought, I love this shit. It is cute when it needs to be cute. It goes hard when it goes hard. It is cathartic when it needs to be cathartic. And it is kind of romantic when I don't actually think they needed to, but they still do. And comedic relief, kind of some of the jokes placements, but that's on me. And then the next one that I want to highlight, and this is a thing that I personally think, I can't confirm this, and for the most part this is just a joke, okay, just a joke, but the fight against the final boss, that is Frieren and Frieren against the final boss in the last dungeon of the second test. Bro, I don't know what they were smoking back there in Madhouse, but oh man, I know you like colors, but I don't know, maybe a bit too much. And I'm joking, of course, but the thing is, right, it comes to a point on that specific episode that I would think that if it was done here in the West, there would be a epilepsy warning attached to it. I don't suffer from epilepsy myself, but I'm pretty sure someone would stick something like that there, because that episode goes really hard with the colors and the flights and the whole thing. It is really, really nice, really well done, really well animated in that too. And just to finish it off, really, because at this point I'm just dragging around, I want to shout out the reason, one more reason of why I think this series is so blessed: the openings. Because if you know Frieren, you know the opening. The first opening of the series, called Yusha or Brave by YOASOBI. Who would have thunk another series blessed with the YOASOBI opening does so well? Who would have thought? But not only that, but I want also to give a shout out to the second opening, because the second opening, it started not really great for me, because compared to YOASOBI, you can feel like that there's a kind of a shock there, but also because it kind of grew on me. It really, really, really grew on me, and it kind of got better as I watched the second part. The second opening is Haru by Yorushika. Haru, for those who don't know, means spring, and it shows by the video. It is such a comfy opening. I would guess it would be a slice of life opening, if not for specifically Frieren, but these things are not an exact science, let's say. And with that, that's about it. So thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in. I hope you all had great holidays, great passage of the year. As the first episode of this year, shameless shout out to my X or Twitter that I post sometimes, and also join the Discord. I want to actually get more watch parties going for this year, because there's some really weird stuff that I want to watch and I would like to discuss with people live. Outside of that, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in, and I hope you guys stick around for next time. Bye.